everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to just share something that Jesse Eisenberg mentioned regarding Lex Luthor, DC superhero movies, and of course we know that he did play he played Lex Luthor in BVS. We saw him again in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So he had some comments about his portrayal of Lex Luthor, especially the way that there was a lot of negative feedback towards his perspective on the character, which I personally really enjoyed it, but I'll get to that in a minute. I'll give my thoughts in a minute. So he said, I'd be shocked if I wound up in a DC movie, but it would be a pleasant shock. So we'll get to the part where I'm just going to highlight the quotes that where he's talking about DC and comic book movies, Lex Luthor. So he said that Eisenberg also expressed dismay at the response to his portrayal of Lex Luthor in the 2016 blockbuster Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. I felt very personal about it, he said. The writer Chris Terrio is a very serious writer, and he's a very emotional person. He thought a lot about my character, and I thought a lot about my character too. I talked with my acting coach about the character a lot and about his backstory with his father and his emotional life, and then people hate me. So it's kind of like I feel bad that it's understandable why he would feel this way because there was such a negative reaction from a lot of people. Oh, it's not comic book accurate. That's not Lex Luthor. It's Mark Zuckerberg. It's all of these things. It's too much like the Riddler and things like that. There was a lot of really negative feedback for his portrayal on Lex Luthor. I personally really enjoyed it. And, it sucks that when he says, the writer Chris Terrio, which I think if you follow Zach's movies, if you follow these stories about, BBS or Man of Steel, Zack Snyder Justice League, we know that Zach and Chris Terrio worked very closely together and that the writing for these movies and for these characters is very deep and a lot of thought goes into it. And so he gives him a lot of credit for thinking a lot about his character and writing for his character and then expressing the extent, the work that he put into thinking about this character and the kind of portrayal that he wanted to give. And then it's like, I do this. There's this great writing for this character. I put in this effort. And then people just respond with all this negativity, right? That's disheartening to hear from him, especially, these I've never really heard him talk much about it. I mean, personally, I haven't until now, and the movie's been out for, several years. So he said, speaking to Deadline afterwards, because this was at a film festival, he's promoting his directorial debut. So shouts out to him for having his first directorial experience. Speaking to Deadline afterwards, Eisenberg clarified that he would not rule out a return to the DC or even Marvel world if called upon. I'd be shocked if I wound up in a DC movie, but it'd be a pleasant shock. He said, listen, I'm not a comic book fan. To me, it was not playing a role that I'd envisioned since childhood. To me, it was a chance to play this great character that this great writer wrote, and I love doing that. So to play it is a joy, and to not play it isn't something that I'm going to be ashamed to tell my kids about, because that is not an important genre in my life, even though I loved doing that movie. So he would still do a superhero movie? Was the question. Yeah, he said, because as an actor, you do all kinds of different things, and sometimes great roles show up in really commercial things, and sometimes terrible roles show up in independent films. So he talks about his other movies, his next project coming up as well. So I just wanted to share that because I personally would like to see Jesse Eisenberg return as Lex Luthor in the DC EU. I really appreciated his role, his portrayal in BVS. I think he has a good character arc to flesh out. I liked that he was not we're getting in BVS, you're kind of getting the beginning, you would say, of his Lex Luthor. He refers to his dad as the Lex in front of the corpse. So he's like Lex Jr. You know what I mean? And we learn, like he said, a lot about his relationship with his father, this emotional trauma. You get hints at that in the movie. He has hair most of the film, which we're used to seeing Lex bald, and we do see him bald at the end of the movie when he goes to prison. And then when we get his appearance in at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, he is out of prison and bald and in the suit with, the more traditional, I mean, the more expected way that we see Lex Luthor usually portrayed. You know, in BVS, yeah, he wears suits and stuff, but he's kind of like this more casual young guy. And then at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, you see him in this nice, on a yacht with this nice fancy suit and he keeps the bald head. So then we're starting to see this arc, okay, now we're getting to where he really wants to be even more of a villain. And I really thought that, again, like he gives Chris Terrio credit, they did, I thought his character was written great. You get the disdain and like this disdain that he has for Superman. And I think that that's important when you're writing for Lex Luthor because, like, for example, in Superman Returns, I felt like there's what they wrote for Lex, for Kevin Spacey's version of Lex, didn't really have anything to do with Superman except for the fact that he was using kryptonite for this piece of land or whatever he wanted to do for real estate purposes. So I really do appreciate the thought into writing for Lex and his role in BVS and turning Batman and Superman against each other. And again, this like true, just like he really does hate Superman, you know what I mean? And I just thought he did really great throughout the movie. I liked these like he's pretty like he's crazy. You know what I mean? Like you get this type of psychological like he's just crazy type of villain, and I thought that he portrayed that well. Kind of like, for example, some of my favorite parts when he can kind of just like switch his like persona is when he's talking to the senator played by Holly Hunter. He has some interactions with her where he can just like all of a sudden switch into this really, and like, I don't know if you would call him scary, but she knew that he was not, that he didn't have good intentions for wanting to get the kryptonite and things like that. You just, especially, I think the best example of that is when she goes to his house and she's talking to him in his father's room, and he realizes that she's not going to approve it. He really switches to this darker version of himself, and I think that Jesse Eisenberg did a great job of thinking about, like he said, he put a lot of thought into this character. Again, we see this beginning, this arc starting to transform when we see him at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I think it would be cool to see that, more of that. And now that he's out of prison and, Superman is, has come back, but he's the one who he reached out to Steppenwolf, and I would also like to know what he learned during his time. Well, he learned about Steppenwolf, Darkseid, and Apocalypse, obviously, during his time in the Kryptonian ship. And I would like to know what else he learned, because he's obviously this genius. His monologue here with Superman on the rooftop, I think, is also one of the highlights of the movie and of his portrayal as Lex Luthor. Desire to have power because of his knowledge. And I would like to know what else he learned in the Kryptonian ship, in the Ultimate Edition, of course. I love that he tells Batman that he knows who he is. And I like that Zack used him at the end of his Justice League movie to set up the relationship between Deathstroke and Batman. So I would like to see him return and see him be, continue on that path of Lex that we are all more familiar with. And I think people were just too quick to misunderstand his interpretation of Lex. For me, it wasn't even a type of thing like it grew on me. I just always appreciated and enjoyed his version of Lex. And, I still do. And I appreciate his honesty about, this wasn't a childhood dream role for me. This was a character that, because, a lot of people that play these comic book characters, it is, but for some people it's like he appreciated the writing for the character, and he appreciated the opportunity to be able to play such a well-written character. I'm happy to hear that he would be pleasantly surprised if he were able to reprise this role as Lex, and I would be personally pleased with that and happy to see him return. So I wanted to share his thoughts about that, what he had to say about it. I'd be pleasantly surprised as well. So I hope more people can come to appreciate his portrayal of Lex and where it was going, and hopefully maybe one day we'll get to see him. It's nice to know that he would like to do it. So thank you guys for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you guys for so much. Thank you guys for all the support on the channel. I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.